This one's going to be a lot of fun too here. I just wanted to do a little preface here on the Major League Baseball, the Harmon Killebrew logo. Some people think that MLB, this logo right here, is based on the famous slugger Harmon Killebrew of the Minnesota Twins. It is not, in fact. In doing research for this, oops, let me pull over here. They said, contrary to popular belief, the silhouette was not modeled after Harmon Killebrew or any specific player. It was designed to be, because of ambiguity, it's supposed to be just any player. In fact, you could look at this logo and it would be a right or left-handed batter. I think that's an interesting idea, but I think that it was modeled after him. But if they were to say it was modeled after Harmon Killebrew, they would probably have to pay Harmon Killebrew for the right to have that, because that logo looks very similar to his batting stance. Kyrie Irving is the one that really kind of prompted me toward this project, because he came out and said with a lot of force recently, Jerry West, why is Jerry West the current person on the logo when the modern day game is so much different and all of that. In fact, here is the article by that they wrote about when Kyrie Irving came out and said this, and he really thinks it ought to be Kobe Bryant. And it's an interesting look at this because there were other people. The petition that soon gathered more than 1 million virtual signatures as of Wednesday, number was 3.2 million. In fact, they had Mark Cuban on here too. There are just a lot of people agreeing with this, saying, "Hey, maybe in light of the passing of Kobe Bryant." So some people besides MJ, nobody's had a bigger impact than Kobe. Mark Cuban's on here with support putting Bryant on the logo. The NBA champion, 14-time All-Star. It's just a kind of an interesting consideration. Of course, Kyrie Irving would be at the center of this. He's a guy that doesn't mind controversy. We've talked a lot about his COVID stuff. We've talked a lot about how he's, said that Earth was flat and just some other things as his against getting the vaccination. And he's a guy that's just going to speak his mind. He's written a lot of interesting things on here. So one of the things that I came across as well in looking at this was here is Jerry West as the player, just so you kind of have a little bit of idea as to what his playing style was like. He played in the 50s and 60s, I believe. Here's Jerry West of the Lakers.
Lakers trying to pressure the inbound pass. And it comes into Earl Frazier with 10 seconds now showing the clock. 8 seconds left to go on the clock. 7, 6, 5. The pusher shoots. 3 seconds to go. 2 seconds. 1 second. West throws it up. Jerry West made it from the other side of the big court stripe.
As you can tell, he's certainly an incredible player, but it is a little bit of a different era of basketball. And so, the idea of him being the representative, I found an interview with Jerry West as well, where he talked about the guy who actually designed the NBA logo, because the NBA is claiming that this logo is not based on Jerry West, that it is just a silhouette of an NBA player. That is not true. And the reason it's not true is because they believe that if it was Jerry West, they would owe him a lot of money for using his name and image likeness, as we know from college players nowadays. But they actually interviewed Jerry West here, and I'll play that for you in just a second. But, they asked the guy who creates this, why did you select Jerry West as silhouette? And he started thinking about it. He found the picture of him, and he liked kind of the way he was dribbling, because it was nice and vertical and leaning on the dribble. I had a little motion to it. I designed 8 or 9, 10 different versions. and that one turned out to be the most effective. They presented to the NBA. And he also considered players like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Wilt Chamberlain, Tom Havlicek, Tom Gola, some other ones as well. And so, like, it is based on Jerry West, regardless of what the NBA wants to say or doesn't want to say. It's based on him. But here's what Jerry West had to say about this. They interviewed him. You know, he is the general manager. He was the general manager for the Lakers. I think he's with Golden State now. But here's what he says.
Ever did an updated logo? There's someone in particular who should be on it?
You know, first of all, I wish that had never gotten out that logo. I do, really.
Right. It's the best nickname
I
ever,
really
by
do.
the way.
And I've said it more than once. And, you know, it's flattering if that's me. And I know it is me.
Yes.
But it is flattering. And but to me, as I say, I played in the time when they first started to try to market the league. There were 5 people that they were going to consider. And I didn't find out about it until, well, the late commissioner told me about it, Walter Kennedy. And then obviously the New York Times had a big article about it. But again, it's flattering, but it's also, I think, if I were the NBA, I would be embarrassed about it. I really would.
Why?
Because I don't know. As I say, I don't like to do anything to call attention to myself. And people say that, and when people say that, that's just not who I am, period.
Wow.
And if they would want to change it, I wish they would. In many ways, I wish they would.
Really?
Yes,
You'd like to see them change it?
I would.
And
Yes.
do you have a pick for who you would like to replace it?
I would be again. I would be biased. I'm not going to
You're
say.
allowed to be biased. He's
Maybe
right
they,
here.
maybe they could put the commissioner on there.
Oh,
Okay.
oh,
Adam Silver would look great. How did we not think of that? How did we not think of that?
And
If they ever didn't.
And by the way, this person right here is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who was also considered to be one of the players, or Lou Alcindor prior to his name change, as one of the people potentially to be. You know, the hook shot that he had, I mean, he had a sky hook that was just unstoppable. Believe me, my Blazers were the blunt of that many times. So should they change it? Jerry West is in agreement with it. He doesn't really like that it was him. I mean, he's a pretty humble guy, and you can see his style of play. He was a great player, but there's just a different style of play these days. And so what you need to think about is you need to think about a player. If they're currently in the Hall of Fame, then you're good to go. If they're not currently in the Hall of Fame, you kind of have to make a reason for why you think that particular player has a trajectory to be in the Hall of Fame. So, you know, if you were to pick, you know, somebody that, you know, and I put some players down here as well. You know, let's say we picked LeBron James to be this person. You know, you would pick him, and you would say he's definitely got a trajectory to where he's going to be a Hall of Fame player someday. You know, the Greek freak here, Kevin Durant. You know, you've got my boy Damian Lillard here, who is ahead of Luka. I don't want to cause too much controversy here, but Lillard's ranked 9 and Luka's ranked 10. You know, but anyway, this is, you know, trajectory. If you think there are players that you feel like could eventually be in the Hall of Fame, if you pick some obscure player and nobody knows them and they're probably not going to be a Hall of Fame player, the other team can simply argue, look, this is not a Hall of Fame player, and they could win the round even without even presenting a good argument for their person. As long as their person's in the Hall of Fame, then that is going to trump whatever you're putting in there. If you're putting in some obscure player that is not one of the best players in basketball. And I'm not saying this 10 players is the best 10. I just found a picture of what they picked as the top current 10 best players, and that is what it is. So let's take a look at my slideshow here. And the player I picked for mine obviously is going to be Clyde the Goliath Drexler, one of my favorite players. And you're going to this slideshow is going to be very similar to, you know, what it was in the past with Bankable Movie Star and that kind of thing. You're going to provide video evidence. Remember, you cannot change this. So please, those of you people who keep changing this or wanting to edit it or wanting to hyperlink it or whatever, don't. It just needs to be on here. By the way, this is all going to be one document this time. Opener, persuader, closer, all one document. So when you open this document, you need to share it amongst all of the people in your group. You're going to give us 4 facts about your particular player. For Clyde Drexler, we all know he was elected in the Hall of Fame in 2004. Instant credibility, so I don't have to give much credibility to him because he's already in the Hall of Fame. He was named one of the top 50 players of all time. He grew up in the Houston area, and in addition to that, he brought a title to his hometown of Houston in 1995. Unfortunately, he left my Blazers and went to Houston and won a championship with Akeem Olajuwon. Now, he was not the top player on that team. That was Olajuwon's team for sure. But Clyde Drexler certainly was the number 2 guy on that team and certainly brought, that humble kind of personality you need for it. My first argument would be that he's got a good mix of old school. Like, he could shoot from outside. He's a perimeter player like Jerry West was. But in addition to that, he was one of the premier dunkers in the 80s and 90s. He certainly is going to be a player that, he's got old school, he's got new school, he's got all of that. He also won an NBA title in 1995, as I said before. And I would show a video about that as well. And, he's never really had any controversy in his career. He's been a guy that's been stand-up guy. He's never been in any kind of struggles or any of that kind of stuff as far as like controversy goes. And he's just a guy that would really bring the old school and the new school together in a real diplomatic way. Okay, so as far as the persuader goes, I'd be arguing today about Clyde Drexler versus Larry Bird, who was another incredible player from the 80s. Larry Bird's considered one of the greatest players of all time, maybe the greatest Celtic of all time. And Clyde Drexler, really, to me, I think he's a better fit than my opponents of Larry Bird, because Drexler's style was just really more exciting. I mean, Clyde Drexler could jump from the free throw line and dunk it. He was a guy that just had some incredible, awesome dunks. Whereas Larry Bird was more of a perimeter player. He could dunk, he could do that, he could pass really well, but it just wasn't the excitement that Michael Jordan or Clyde Drexler or Charles Barkley during that era that brought. Another thing here is that Clyde Drexler played a long career and really avoided injuries most of his career. He played really well, whereas Larry Bird was plagued with just horrible back problems all through the late 80s and into the 90s, so much so that he had to retire. Clyde Drexler had a really great nickname, which was the Glide, Clyde the Glide, and Larry Bird, he's probably got some nicknames as well, but Clyde the Glide is one of the most iconic nicknames as well. And then, of course, in the closer project here, you'll pick out 3 of the arguments that you used previously as your closer's arguments on here as well. Never any controversies, very long career, very durable, and why you should vote for him. All right, another thing we need to look at real quick is the scoring rubric. It's going to be very similar to the one last time, except this time you can lose up to 4 points for errors, typos on yours. Please make sure that you capitalize things that need to be capitalized, names, those kinds of things. Those are easy for me to catch as far as errors go. Remember, you've got to have continuous questions for 2 minutes, no delays on any of your videos. You guys can probably use one main computer to do one main iPad to do most of your presentation from. However, you need to have a backup. So everybody on the team needs to have the PowerPoint or the Google slide and all the videos. You need to have enthusiasm about your project. Is the work turned in time? And make sure that you give me impact statements as well on your particular. So you don't just say, oops. For instance, Clyde is a good mix of old school, new school. And then flick to the next slide. No, you got to say the impact of this is that, maybe you liked the modern player, maybe you like the older player. That's great. The impact of this is that Clyde Drexler is a mix of both of those, and he can really appease to both generations, to the Mr. Simpsons of the world and to the 18, 16, 17-year-old of the world. The last thing we need to look at here is on this particular project, you're going to have a student feedback form. What you're going to do is you're going to have 4 of these sheets. So as the teams are competing, you're going to write one full sentence about one thing you liked during the opener speech. Then you're going to write one thing about the B team's opener speech, one thing that you liked about the persuader speech, one thing that you liked about the B team persuader. Same thing for the closers, which team that you voted for, team A, team B, and why you picked them. So why you think it is that particular player best embodies the NBA and should be on the logo. Okay? I hope that makes sense. I'm excited about this project. Thanks, guys.